first time Ole Christian approached me about the story was years before we actually started shooting. We had just done another film together, and he asked me if I would be interested in playing this part. And I read the draft he had at that time. I think it was his third draft. It was a very early draft. And the story just fascinated me. I hadn't seen the approach to war like that before. I think it's I loved the idea that you couldn't tell who was good and who was bad, and what these guys were fighting for.
Så vidt jeg ved, har vi en klar kommandovej. Og så vidt jeg ved, har jeg ikke godkendt, at likvideringen af Gav skulle foretages i dag.
Vi foretog den vurdering, at det var sikkert at gøre.
Ja, så var vi lige lavet.
Nå, det var en underskrift til de høje herrer i Stockholm. Der er nogle ting på vej.
Med det?
Det er noget, som kræver diskretion og strengeste disciplin.
And I love the anger and the frustration, and I also love the heroic part of it, and that it's men who sacrifices themselves for what they believe in for other people. I think there's something extremely beautiful in that, and something very scary in it as well, because it creates fanatics as well. But I thought it was a very, very interesting film to be a part of. I mean, of course, playing a part that's known as a hero gives some expectations, and that I had to work with those and really find my own way of playing him. And one of the things I found out. I mean, one of the things I thought a lot about and discussed a lot with Ole Christian was that all the heroic parts, that he was not a hero. I think he becomes a hero in the end, but in a way he was not a hero. He was just a guy fighting for what he believed in, and that maybe makes him heroic. But you can't play a hero. You got to play a human being.
En anden god grund. Nazistiske redaktører, der spreder deres propaganda i aviserne.
I had to do a lot of research for the part. There was a lot of historical things I of course had to study, and I really got interested in war theories as well, about why do people go to war.
Nu der 32 faldne, og det lige starten. Kommunisterne kæmper.
And then, of course, since Flame that I'm playing is based on a real character, a real person that was actually alive, there were a lot of things I found out about him, and I had to find out who he was and why he did the things he did. So there was a lot of preparation. Then, of course, I had to learn to shoot and do some military training as well. We had a few photographs of how they actually looked like, and I could see he looked a little bit like, or I looked a little bit like him. Then there was, I think, one or two. I had one documentary film where there actually was some footage of him, very short. One clip from when he's 17. And one clip a little bit later where he's making fun at a birthday party, and that was basically it. The thing is, since they were undercover, you didn't know that much about them. There was not so much written about them. There was not so many pictures of them, because they were undercover. So basically, most of the things that I found out, or that Ole Christian, the director, found out, was through people who knew him, who had known him when he was alive. When you play a character that has actually been alive, of course, there's a huge responsibility, because I wouldn't say you have to. I mean, you have to bring yourself to the role, to the part, but you also have to accommodate that this was an actual man. Since there was not so many pictures of him, or I didn't know his voice. I didn't know that much about him. Only what I heard. I felt pretty free in my interpretation of the part. So I think I went more into the psychology of him, and found my own interpretation of who he is. And I think I can't play him. I have to play a character. I think that was pretty important for me, and for Mads as well, to playing Citron.
Lad nu være med at provokere den, ikke? Ja.
I think what motivates Flame to do all the killings he does and to do what he does is anger, and it's justice as well. I think he's a guy that he wants justice, and he just wants to kill all the Nazis in the whole world. And he would, I mean, if he had survived Denmark, I think he would have gone to Japan afterwards to fight there in the war there. I think he would have just moved on from war to war. I don't think he was very nationalistic in any way. I think he was just against evilness, against Nazis, against suppression and occupation in any way. I don't think he was justified in his actions, but it's not up to me to judge whether he was that or not. If I do that as an actor, then I start locking myself up on something, and to me it's more important to be as open as possible and ask the questions instead of answering them for the audience. Ole Christian is he's very calm on a set. He's very intelligent, so he doesn't let his emotions get in the way or in his own way when he directs you, and that's a very good feeling for an actor, at least, because then you can concentrate on your own work instead of concentrating about how the director feels. I didn't really concentrate about the whole style of the film. I try to concentrate as much as possible on the character work and on the work with Mads and Ole Christian about how to create these characters, how not to. You could easily make Flame too psychotic, for example. He would just be a psychopath, which we both thought would be wrong. But how would you create a character that's so cynical and so tough and still make him, a human being? So I actually concentrated more on the mental things and on the character work than the actual style of the whole film. Ole Christian is in that way wonderful to work with, because he doesn't want you to concentrate on marks, he doesn't want you to concentrate on the light, he doesn't want you to concentrate on anything else than the other person in that room. And we have a wonderful director of photography, Jørgen Haagen, who is excellent. So he walks around with his camera and he captures you wherever you are, and that's a great gift for an actor, that you just have to concentrate about acting and not about, oh my God, where's my light? What are we doing here? Fortunately, the film became a pretty big success in Denmark. Actually, a very big success in Denmark, which was great. But it also caused a lot of discussion. The press definitely discussed a lot whether it was right or wrong, and whether you should even talk about these things, because it's a very important part of our history, and it's a very important story to tell. And of course, when you go out and you say those people that we believed were heroes maybe had some more shady sides, or it was not as black as white as we think. That will always cause a lot of discussion and controversy. But most of the reactions that I heard were actually pretty good. So that was fortunate. Mads and I discussed the relationship of Flammen Citronen a lot with Ole Christian as well, and we really spent a lot of time discussing what two persons that are so different would do if they get together and they got no one else in the whole world but each other to trust. And that was really interesting because Mads is a very clever actor, and he talked a lot about, when you know each other so well, you don't really look at each other, you don't talk so much, you just sit there and you just know that the other person is right next to me. I don't have to look him in the eye or say, how are you? Because I know how he is. I can sense him, I can feel him. Well, that was just a great way of working. I haven't really tried that before. I just had the chance to work on a big Hollywood production. It was a fantastic experience, and I definitely want to be able to work in as many different environments as possible, whether it's UK, USA, Germany, wherever. But I also have a very strong connection to my own country, and I think that's very important. Otherwise, I think you lose some of your own craft. I mean, I definitely come from theatre, and I love doing films. But I think once in a while I definitely have to go back and do a play in front of 200 people every night, and what I heard about Flame, the real person, is that he was actually a very charming young man. He loved wine, he loved ladies, he loved cigarettes, and he was a dandy. He loved to wear white shirts and tie, and he was very self-confident. So I would have loved to meet him. I would definitely love to meet him in 46. But I also think that he in the past, or in the last half year of his life, was a pretty tough guy and a pretty tormented guy. When I work with characters, whether it's for film or theatre, I always try to find differences in the work, so it's not... I could never see myself playing the same part for 10, 15 years. I love discovering different ways and different lives. I think that's extremely fascinating.